Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, you're watching, listening to the Visual Lounge. We're glad you're here. Today, we are going to be talking about customer education. And in particular, we're going to get into some things about why your customer education doesn't have to be perfect. We've got an awesome guest. Dave Derington's here. I'll introduce him in just a second. So come on in. Let us know if you got questions, comments, thoughts that you want to share about customer education. Put them in the chat wherever you're watching us today. And we are going to be taking those questions a little bit later. So put them in there. We'd love to hear from you. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest today because we've got a lot to talk about. So Dave Derington is currently the senior manager of Outreach's customer education program, working relentlessly to help customers, partners, and team members alike have passion for outreach. Part investigative journalist, part teacher, and part computer geek, Dave loves to make complex technology easy by learning things the hard way, organizing it, and sharing that knowledge to everyone who needs it in a fun and relatable way. Dave's career has spanned many industries. He has been a laboratory chemist, a professor, a web developer, a project manager, a business analyst, and probably a candlestick maker, baker, probably a couple other things in there as well. Dave's hobbies has led him to start his own company, play saxophone in a blues band, and even create an art installation. And I'm probably going to slay how you say this, but Laminaire Sculpture Park. Laumeier Sculpture Park. And well, with that, let me introduce Dave Derington to the Visual Lounge. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, Matt. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm so glad. We've been trying to connect for, over a year to make something happen, so I'm excited. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Before, I read bios are funny because you read them and it's like, whoa, that said a lot. But if you just take a second, introduce yourself to our audience, if you will.
Okay. Usually takes more than a second, and these days I say, that bio was fun. I wrote that a while ago for C-Lab when we built the customer education laboratory. The person that I'm representing myself as today is passionate about educating customers for software products, particularly SaaS, and particularly for any organization or business. And when I say SaaS, I mean software as a service. We're trying to rapidly get people up to speed. So again, I'm really happy to be on with TechSmith because I know your products. We use your products. They really help us to elevate and level up our game and do it quickly. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So this field of customer education, I'm super passionate about. I have a co-host of a podcast that I do. That's Adam Avramescu. He works at Slack. I'm his partner in crime, and I work at Outreach. But together, we are taking our passion to the next level, and we're wrapping all of our own personal stuff together, and we're coming at this from a fun angle. We're coming at with kind of an agile perspective. Heck, we even wrote a manifesto. I'm happy to get into all that today, but kind of that's me in a nutshell. I'm really excited about learning and helping others to learn fast, efficiently.
Yeah, no, that is great, and there's so many great things in there. Let's start high level, and then let's kind of dig down, because I think that will be helpful for anyone who is unfamiliar with things like customer education. You shared a little bit about customer education. Let's talk about what that really is, because I know for me, I've been doing, in essence, customer education for a long time, but I never had a name for it, right? I think in my company, I was the customer engagement manager, which might have different connotations depending on where you work, but essentially I was doing customer education. Like, that was my primary focus. So for you, how do you describe to people who have never heard the term customer education, what would you tell them it is? What should it look like? What should it be?
This is a really great question. I'm kind of go off script here, and I'm not going to read like a definition. I'm going to tell you from my heart or what I think it means. Customer education to me is really all about, it's all about scale. I did a webinar just yesterday on this. It's about getting information about how to use this project, and not just how to, but why. So let's think about it. Whatever comes to mind first. Okay, let's use Audiate. Audiate is a product that you make. I tried it out not too long ago because I was trying to solve a particular problem. How would I go about explaining that to somebody? How if you made a new product tomorrow and we had to launch it, what is it that needs to go into getting that to a customer? So customer education is like this interesting intersection between customer success, which the goal of customer success is all about success. I want you as a customer to be happy with the product that you bought, because we're in a subscription economy, right? That means if you say to me, Dave, I can't use this thing, I failed quickly, right? And because we're moving so fast in a lot of these companies, a lot of organizations, and this is not beholden just to software as a service now, it's everything. We move and we try to get a product out the door quickly. This is where you call in customer education people, because we use methodologies that are very rapid, right? Agile. And it's all about getting that learning, that knowledge into the hands of the customer as quickly as possible so that they can get unblocked and be able to use it. That translates to things that we learn in the customer success world, which are like, how do I retain customers longer? How do I make sure they get the most value out of it? And more than anything, I think adoption is the biggest one. Let's take a story of, I love to tell people this story. I'm not going to actually tell you the name of the product I'm using. This typifies the work that we have to do. So let's say I'm a customer and I'm in a business. So we're talking B2B largely, but education can be B2C as well. And you, Matt, maybe you're my boss and you come to me and you say, Dave, I need you to learn this product and start using it tomorrow. And I go, whoa, wait a minute, I'm using this other product, or I'm using this third product and I'm happy with it. So this is the customer play, right? We're busy, not lazy. We have a job to do. So we're looking for, how does this unblock me and make me do my job better so I can do bigger and better things? So when you come to me and say, Dave, you're going to learn this, I may go through onboarding, right? I may sit in a training class, or, in the old days, we would get flown across the country and sit in the class for a couple of 3 days. We don't do that anymore. COVID times really epitomizes what the values of customer education are. Getting customers enabled or empowered quickly, and they can use the product better. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, what it is we're really rapidly scaling content and getting it in the hands of the customer, and ideally making that in a way that's just in time. It's there when you need it. It's there when you have time to use it. How's that?
Yeah. So I love a couple of things you said. I love the focus on kind of being agile, moving forward quickly, getting it to them. And you also said the thing that stuck out to me is that while primarily I think a lot of customer education is focused in SaaS-based companies, or companies that are using subscription as a service, customer education is really kind of everywhere now, right? Like, everyone's finding to do it. In fact, you and I were at a conference, and one of the groups there was there that I'm like, really? You're here? Oh, I guess that makes sense. I saw the U-Haul was at this conference, and it was a customer education conference. I was like, that makes actually a lot of sense. It's sort of like a subscription as a service, not a subscription, but a rental, right? You got stuff that you want your customer to be successful. You don't want them to fail, because failure could be catastrophic.
Especially with U-Haul when you're moving.
Right. It's expensive. So those are things that stood out to me as from a kind of a customer education perspective. So let's keep going though. So you also talked about kind of the speed, right? What's the impetus behind speed? Because I want to get to how do we get faster, because I think that's something that we could really get to. But why, in your mind, is that speed so critical for customer education?
Well, I think this is going to unlock a lot of our discussion today. And actually, the things that I've said kind of frame up and steer us to the point that I want to make with you, and to this audience in particular. And I think if I'm reading it right, and Matt, check me if I'm wrong here, you're listening and you're tuning in today because you're like, oh, okay, number one, I want to know what this customer education thing is. And number one, I could always go faster. I could always make content and get that out quicker. But I'm scared. Maybe you're scared. I'm scared. Let's put it in a different context. So speed is everything. And let me go back in time, and I'll go back to one of the earlier companies where I first had a role in customer education formal. That was Gainsight. So if any of you have ever heard of Gainsight, you know that it's the customer success company, or one of them, that builds software for it. Now, there was a discrete challenge when I came into the environment, and that was, well, there was kind of training and kind of enablement material, and there was documentation for sure that was actually pretty good, but it was a jigsaw puzzle, right? The caveat is, okay, you're working at a company and you're really early phase. You're 150 people. Something interesting happens in this journey of an organization to release a product. Now, that company could actually be one person. That company could be It could be Microsoft, and they're dealing with a small, they're bringing a new product to life. Everybody can use this principle of rapidly scaling and delivering content. And I think we don't do this intentionally because, and Matt, we were talking about this earlier when we were preparing. You know what? Let me tell you another story. Most of us who've gone through high school, maybe college, are kind of trained to be an educator, and we don't recognize that. What I mean by that is you sit in a classroom, you let information pour over you, you go home and you do homework, you take a test, you rinse, wash, repeat. When we get into an organization and a business, we apply a lot of those same skills. We PowerPoint people to death, right? Or Google slides, and we show people, okay, this is how we communicate, this is how we learn. It's not necessarily true. And it doesn't always work well that way. So we're trying to introduce methodologies and things that come in from good adult learning theory and good canonical instructional design. But therein lies one problem, in that traditionally those practices are very long form. They take quite a long time, first to get the information right, and then second to make the quality right. So you've got that I guess, governor or throttle pulling you back and say, slow down, Dave. But on the other side, you've got this pressure. Now put yourself like, let's do a thought experiment together. And Matt, you can steer me a different direction, but I like to do this. Let's meditate a little bit and like think about, I'm a company and I want to sell my product and I need to figure out how to use that product, get that product to market fast. So naturally I'm going to be like, okay, well, I want to get some content out there quickly. But then if I'm building that content, what am I going to do? Cognitively, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to go and I'm going to get the kitchen sink and boom, there it is. Everything. I'm going to tell you this button does this. It's a click fast. You even hear that click pass. It's do this. It's go for mentality. A lot of training ends up being that because that's what we're really educated fundamentally through our educational system. Now it breaks down. So here we are, I've got to get a product release in 1 week, right? My product team is going to launch this product and it's brand new and nobody's ever seen it before. I've got a week to get that content out. This is where the rubber meets the road in customer education. And this is where you have to apply a completely different and more agile approach to getting the content out there and being okay with a lack of perfection. I know that's hard. That's hard for me. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So let's use that and we can frame up the discussion from there. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, no, I love that, right? Like, because that's a real business challenge, and it does, because my inclination is I want you to know everything. I want you to know everything about my product. I want you to know how to do it because that's going to make you successful. If you know everything, you'll be successful. But the reality is, from what you're saying, is that's not true. It's because I can't teach you everything in a week. I can't get you up to speed. Yeah. We'll take Camtasia for instance, right? Like most people, there's probably very few, but most people don't learn everything about Camtasia in their month of trial. They can't. It's just impossible. There's too much there. There's too much kind of complexity. I mean, some people can learn a lot, but so I love what you're saying. We got to go move fast. We got to be agile. And I do want to talk about the perfection piece of this because I think it's interesting because I think here's what I can hear. I can hear we'll pretend we got little managers on our shoulders and they're saying, no, it's got to be done now. And the other one's saying, yes, but it needs to look really good. It needs to be perfect because this represents our brand. So tell me, Dave, how do we overcome this? How do we make better content faster, but how do we let go of that need? Because like you said, if you're a recovering perfectionist, that's really hard. And because you're always worried, well, I don't want my customers to value my product or what I'm doing is less because frankly, I mean, let's put it very selfishly as if I'm a customer education professional and my job is on the line and I put out stuff that's not perfect, I don't want to be fired because it's not looks good. Yeah, somebody's going to complain about that, right?
That's what. Okay, so here's a time and space where we need to think about psychology, right? We need to think about how our brains work. And again, going back to that, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I will always struggle with this, and using that as kind of like, I guess I could call it my superpower because when we introduce new people to the team at first, and this is a continuum. This is a maturity thing. when I'm very early into a company, let's say I'm just assembling a team, like I did at Outreach and Gainsight, we have to like think about the task at hand. And that is, oh my God, I have got to build an academy or a university that's going to be online. I've got to get trainers up to speed and have them have content to do really good training at from my biggest customers. How do I get all this stuff together? And my boss says, you got a month. Whew, okay, great. Now it's loaded. It's a loaded question, right? Or it's a loaded task to think, okay, I've got to do a really good job. Now let's go back to my university self. In university, you're going to write a paper and you're going to try to get it, to be perfect. Or maybe your first job where you're like, I really want this to be great because I want to show off all the things that I've learned, and I want my manager to like the work that I've done. I want the customers to think this is great. Okay, that is true. Matt, we said before, like with true false, that driving impulse is accurate. We do want that. We do aspire to that. That should always be in the back of our mind. But like a lot of those cartoons, when you have the devil on one side and the angel on the other, I feel like I have that. And sometimes you got to go to that angel and flick him off, say, come back in about a month or 3 months or 6 months when I got the bases covered. I've got the core of my curriculum together.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do, here's a nice little a couple little things that I do. Number one, I really think about just a brutal timeline. Like, how fast can I get this material together? And I think about time boxing. So have you ever heard of the term time boxing? It means I'm going to say, I'm going to get this task done in this time, 1 week, 3 days, 1 day, whatever it is. And I'm going to do as best I can in that. I'm a big fan of, Matt, have you ever gone to a game jam, global game jam?
I've never been to a game jam, but I think I might know what it is. But explain it for everyone else who doesn't.
Okay, let me do this. I love game jams. So there's a big thing called Global Game Jam, happens in January of every year. And usually, where I used to live in St. Louis, there were groups that really had them 3 times a year. They love doing this. The point of a game jam is you build a video game in a weekend, full one, start to finish. Is it going to be good? No. It's just going to be god awful. But you know what? The people that do it over and over again end up coming up with gems. And some of those games end up getting put up on platforms like Steam. I'm a video game enthusiast too. So, but video games are software as a service in the most brutal way, because you're trying to put something together. You're using all these different media types, storytelling, video, animation, system stuff, technology, and you're packaging all that I'm giving out there for someone to enjoy. And if you do that in a weekend and you get the core of it together, is it going to look great? Nope. Did it work? Did you have fun with it? Yeah. If you had fun with it, you did exactly what we do in customer education. It proves out that point. I can make a little bit of content and I can say, I screwed up the background on that one, or the font looks a little off, or the video is a little bit grainy, or what is the customer's perception of that on the other end? Let's think about me as a customer now. So if I adopt a B2B or B2C platform software, one of the biggest things that I am a customer, okay, why do I buy your product? Why did I buy Camtasia, Matt? I bought Camtasia because it provides me a superpower. It gives me an ability to do something. And I need to learn that. So the caveat here is that I got to get something up to speed pretty quick, right? I'm going to decrease the quality level. I'm going to try to get everything together. I'm going to put as much in it again. But then what I do is something a little bit different. Instead of thinking about the kitchen sink, this is the natural tendency. Me as a customer, I just want to know, why am I doing this? And generally, how does it work? And then I'll figure out the rest on my own. If you can show me a pattern or a pathway, a roadblock, and understand the core concepts, usually I can go, and this happens in software. Somebody I talked to recently, his name is Michael from Intricately, CEO of the company, had talked about this idea of neuroplasticity. The context wasn't the canonical, what is neuroplasticity from a scientific perspective. It's more that because of who we are these days, we're out there using tons and tons of software. So think about me, Dave Derington. I've used Gainsight, all the Microsoft products, all the Google products. I've used, I mean, I can make this list a mile long. I've touched all these different things. And you come along with Audiate, right? I'm going to talk
Yep.
about text
Yeah.
products because we're here. I look at that and I go, okay, I watched a very short video to like ground me in the core elements. And in that video, it's okay, Dave, here's what audience is. And I'm probably going to bumble through this, Matt. So
That's
pardon
okay.
me. I'm just reflecting on my experience. When I walked into this, I saw, okay, number one, this looks like other TextNets products. Good. I already have a good sense of how you lay that out. Okay, now, so you don't have to teach me click file and save and blah, blah. No, I don't need to know all that. I've used computers for years. But two, and then you give me a light intro and say, oh, okay, I'm looking for what in the heck are the main elements that I need to understand. And that is, okay, I was trying to solve a problem because I wanted to get a script out of Audiate that I can use to put on my website or use that as a foundation to build like a blog article. Because these are the words that I said, but I really love the fact that machine learning AI behind the scenes can take my words and run them on paper so I don't have to. Cool. So I
Yeah.
needed to find out how to do that. So I said, I walk into using any platform, any product with beginning with the end in mind. Stephen Covey, love that guy. So from Audiate, what was my use case? My use case is I want to walk out of using this product. I don't want to spend very long. I want to upload a file. I want that file to be translated. I'm going to walk away, get a cup of coffee or something to drink, snack maybe. That'd be great. Take a nap, come back. It didn't take that long. Great. I've got a script out. And now what do I do with it? I can play around with it. That's the customer experience. Unblock me, make it easy for me to do something. I don't give a squat about how perfect that training is because it's got to be short. It's got to be get to the point. It's got to talk about the use cases. Did you do that? Great. As a customer, I'm going to give you a pass because it's basically like you're a triage doctor, right? If you're out in the field and I'm bleeding and I've like broke my leg or something like that, you come up, you seal the wound, you do something, you get me back to the hospital. You're relieving the pain of a customer. This really is the core of customer education. Think about the pain of the customer first. Think about how that company needs to use your product to do something and let that drive you. And what that does is it says to the perfectionist Dave over here, and they're saying, oh yeah, you got to be perfect, got to be perfect, got to be perfect. It's not about me. It's about the customer's pain. I'm that triage doctor in the field trying to help you out.
Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome because there was a lot there to unpack, but I love that thought, right? Like especially if you're in that scenario that you laid out, you've got 1 month, you've got to lay out all, do the stuff. Like it's also you're triaging in that process. Like these are the core things, like because you can always build later. Like beyond that month, there's probably going to be an opportunity to do more. In fact, my team, we just went through and last month we did a Google design sprint is what they call them. It's 1 week where you pack in all these things. And by the end of the week, you've got a prototype and you've run it by customers.
Yeah.
And like we learned so much from that experience about what customers actually needed in this particular thing that we're trying to design. And it's crazy what you can actually do. And then you can swarm around that work. But I love this notion that you got to that your customer ultimately doesn't care. If the information's good and it moves me towards that end state, they don't care about the quality. And I think I want to be careful here because I do think there's things that are, for our audience listening, I don't think we're saying have bad audio if you're making a video. Don't
Absolutely
have
not.
fuzzy, grainy pictures. Don't make bad stuff, but it doesn't have to be exact. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Like I know some people spend hours aligning elements, and I think we even maybe have talked about this. Like, if you got a PowerPoint slide, right, and one thing's off just by a little bit, and PowerPoint or Word are so notorious for getting things lined up. It's difficult, but at the end, maybe that's the thing that you're spending too much time on. It really doesn't matter if it's off by a pixel or two, right?
And here's a thought that I love to pass on to people. Let's go back to Walt Disney. This is a story I used to tell in my video game design class when I taught it. He had this concept of what's called a weenie. Have you heard this before, Matt?
No.
Okay. So imagine yourself walking into Disney and you're walking through the castle, the big tower, and depending on where you are in the country or the world. And Disney is an experience. You take all this glory in. It's like, oh, this is my childhood, all personalized and here in the real world. And you're walking through this experience. Now, the thing about Disney is that perfectionism is really important, but he actually introduced this concept of a weenie, a small mistake, an intentionally left behind a mistake that guides your attention. In his context, that was they would put we place different like things that you could explore. So you naturally,
Mm-hmm.
oh, look at that, that's really cool. But the things that are there are guiding you away from, like, maybe you have a T intersection in the castle and you can go left and you can go right. And oh, you see something and it naturally pulls your attention and drives you, leads you through that experience. And in fact, you can use those things. Like, I made a mistake, maybe I just intentionally leave that, because you know what, sometimes that distracts people, your customers as well, and they see that and they go, oh, there's this one little mistake here. And like, well, you know what? They're missing the fact that I got 10 others in that video that were more pronounced and important. And I left one in. So the point is that you can actually leverage a little bit of imperfection, in my experience, to help distract people away from bigger problems. For example, like I've had very critical people look at my content. And sometimes I will intentionally leave something in there that they can catch and glam onto. And I fixed it instantly, but knowing that there are some other systemic problems I really did need to do. And I bought myself some time, because you're not doing that to be a jerk or to manipulate people. You're doing that to buy yourself time. The game of customer education is buying yourself time. How can I get the content quick and then come back when I'm more mature as a company and say, round two, let's take the quality level up. Round three, let's make it interactive and layer in and do SCORM and stuff like that. So you start fast and you grow, and then your designer. And this is really great, particularly for, like, if you have a hybrid team of some mature, like really good career instructional designers and education people, and more junior people that may be coming in from customer success or product marketing or other different areas, and then you merge them in the middle. So you're leveraging the diversity of, well, I know I can make great learning outcomes, and then you have people coming in that can do it quickly, and it's safer, right? Because you can make mistakes and you have an opportunity to learn. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to turn to our audience. We've got a comment I want to read, and then a question that was asked that I think is worth going through. First, the comment, we'll just throw it up here. Charles asks, no, we are asking if customer education needs to be perfect. No, customer education needs to meet the goals and objectives for what needs to be taught. Time is always a factor when creating content. It does not need to be perfect. So a good, yes. Charles, thanks for that emphasis on that thing that I think we're saying. This is the question we want to get to. Larry's going to ask, and it's a couple parts, so forgive me as I just read through this, but we'll go through it. It says, I'm a physician in a large healthcare organization. I help other physicians in the group with technology. Large affiliated group is coming online in May on a new, fairly complex electronic medical record system, struggling whether to put out multiple small videos or long ones. This will not be the only resource, only a resource for the physicians. So you can imagine in your organization that they're going to have this. I mean, this is a question I know at TechSmith we get asked a lot about length of videos, but Dave, I think it's worth going from your perspective, because here you are, you've talked about the constraints. You're focused very much on that customer education group, whereas I think a lot of the people that I'm talking to on a regular basis are internally focused on their their employees, their staff, things like that. So what would you say to Larry about kind of the length of these videos? What approach would you take if you were in his shoes?
Well, number one, Larry, thanks for the question. I think this is very incisive. This is one that's kind of at the heart of this. It's another dimensionality. So think of one dimension of content production and customer education. I can't get on screen. There we go.
We'll make you center there.
One axis is like quality, right? So lower or higher. But one of the axes are length, right? It's larger or smaller. I want to answer this question in kind of a BS way, which is, I actually think you should do both. So like let's think about the speciation or the dissemination of content in different media. What I mean by that is, I think about myself as a podcaster, right? We have a podcast. It's called the Customer Education Laboratory. It's customer.education. Sorry, I had to stick that in there, Matt.
No, it's good.
We'll
drop a link in the chat.
Indeed. We focus on this quite a lot. And as I'm building my own personal website, it's helping me reinforce the understanding that you have different kinds of content for different needs. Now, to your point, okay, now you're in a large healthcare organization. I have a feeling of one of the platforms that you're using because I've touched them myself. They're big, they're meaty, they've got a lot of things to them. If you're educating a doctor, now you're dripping into the high stakes universe, right? We're not doing surgery here, but we are doing medical records, which are super important. So I like to transpose that or relay that into a B2B play that I have. And I'm going to use words, and I'm going to pave over the words that I say to apply to your case in healthcare. In my universe, I think about two personas largely. I think about the administrator. The administrator is a deeper, more technical user of a platform. Maybe they're there to put in, like we were talking about medical records, where a doctor might be the only one authorized to do certain things. An administrator of a system has that same kind of flavor that, they're going deeper. They understand all of the pieces of the company and the organization or the platform, and they understand the business outcomes and all that stuff. So they're there to tool things and set things up such that the end user, maybe that's a doctor or a nurse or somebody that's actually in my industry. I work in sales, so I'm thinking about sales development reps, business development reps, account execs, account managers, and CSMs. Right? It's very translatable or very relatable. So in this case, when I say both long and short, I mean long form. Okay, let's say, Matt, I'm going to do an experiment here, and I'm going to pretend that we're in a case where Larry here has a week or 2 weeks to get some content out, right?
Yep.
So how would I generate that quickly, but at a decent level of quality that means I'm not going to lose my job? So let's think long form first. One of the things that I always like to do is, I tend to get away from a sage on the stage, but sometimes it's helpful. Sage on the stage, meaning you've got some expert, you put them in front of a mic, you put them in front of a video camera, you get the demo environment in Zoom or GoToWebinar or whatever up, you screen share, and you go long form, and you start at the beginning and you go to the end, and you coach this person. You basically build a script. You say, we're going to go through this narrative, right? That's long form, right? And you record that. Maybe you live stream it like we're doing here, right? We're out live. If I screw up something, well, that's out for you to see, and I'm okay with that. So some of those things are really good because you can very quickly go, okay, I've got my script. I'm going to sit down and record this. I'm going to do it live. I'm just going to walk all the way through it, mistakes and all. Okay. And I can go back and edit that as I go, but that's long form. Then if you do this right, this is where you can take advantage of a multimodal process. Now, internal for your kind of organization in healthcare, none of this is going to go live. It's going to stay behind your firewall. It's going to stay internally in a corporate. So that would be the only differentiation for me because that's more internal enablement as opposed to customer education, which you're going out. But the same principle applies. So what I like to do is actually do these kinds of videos where we say, we're just going to lay it all out. If I had to move really fast, I would record it live and, chop it up then. So then I go, okay, you could either time index, and you could use I use Wistia, and you can time index Wistia. So somebody can go, I got that part, jump, I got that part, jump, got that part. Or you can even cut it up into smaller modules and deliver those. I find that smaller modules are very impactful, particularly for number one, review, and number two, micro learning over time. Matt, when we were at DevLearn a year and a half, 2 years ago, I attended and observed all the micro learning things, because one of the big things that I know and I understand from scientific background is that you lose about, 70%, 80% of everything you know or everything you've learned within a day. So the smaller components are really great for reinforcing material. So if you have an internal LMS and something that you could stage up, maybe even a sequence of emails to drip feed. Doctors are pretty good about absorbing and retaining content because that's what they do. But that's what they have to do because they have to good. But getting that drip feed in the small micro content, that's super helpful, because then you can even do something like say, okay, here's a long form. You can watch that one time all the way through just to absorb. And then here's a list indexed, and this could be even just a web page. This could be a Google Doc, links to videos. And then you've segmented out 3 minutes for this, 5 minutes for this, 1 minute for this, 7 minutes for this. And then you have like an index that I can go jump around and go back to. And that really opens up the space of the topic that I'm trying to learn and lets me get into just what I need. And then I can come back and reference it. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the principles, right? Absolutely. We want to, like, if you only have a short amount of time, get those subject matter experts, get them on camera, get them behind the, like, making the screen recording, even if it's you clicking through things as they're talking about it. Like, there's lots of ways to set that up. So I love that idea. And I even think the cool thing about your, like, hey, just put out the small chunks afterwards or in addition to, you can even tell people, like, if it's a video, this is my favorite thing, 1.5 times speed. You don't have to
Yep.
watch. If it's an 8-minute video, don't watch it at normal speed unless you feel like it's complicated and you really need it. But if it's something you think you can absorb, we just actually had a video. Now, again, this is internal, not customer education, but the VP of marketing sent out a video for some internal stuff we're doing for, personal growth and development, learning and development kind of things. And she's like, in her email, she said, this is, I don't know, I think it was 6 minutes. She's like, watch this at time and a half speed. Like, give your audience permission to go through that if time is constraining. So I think those are fantastic ideas. Let's and Larry just said great suggestions. Thanks. So I think we're on par here, at least, if not doing better. I thought it was better. Let's talk about a little bit more about how we go about developing these things. Because, look, as we've been very clear from the beginning, we're TechSmith. We make Camtasia. We make Snagit. So I am steeped in video. We talk on the show all the time about video. But I'm curious from your perspective, what options do people have when it comes to customer engagement that you found that help you with being able to move quickly, to not getting caught up in the idea of it has to be perfect, but allow you to really successfully serve your customers? What kind of things are you finding work well? And you can say video. I don't mean to eliminate that as an answer, but
I'm actually going to deviate a little bit and use some words first. So one of the things that I can do, can I share my screen real quick here? Is that
let's just bring it up and then we'll have to get it all set up here. But yes, we can do that. No
well, I'm going to do that real quickly. This is not a super big deal, but I think it's important. Oops. Looks like Google Chrome doesn't like that. So here we go. Stand by just one moment.
Yeah. So I'll just say that while you're bringing that up, if anyone's watching, we appreciate you watching. Go ahead and remember you can listen to this as a podcast later or go back to listen to past episodes. Give us a like and subscribe. Do all those things because it helps us know that you're getting value out of this. Also, if you have questions for Dave, put them in the chat. Jessie is here helping us monitor those. Either she can answer if it's a TechSmith question. For the question for Dave, let us know. We'll try to get to that before we wrap up today.
Cool, great seg. So it looks like I'm not able to share, but this doesn't matter. I can read it. We created something because, to your point, Matt, like what is it that we have to do to help guide us to adhere to certain principles that allow us to move fast? Okay, that's hard. And again, I'm bringing up my co-host at the podcast, Adam Evermescu. He and I have been stewing in this concept of what customer education is for years now. And we've been working to get a network of people that we know and we trust, Matt, you being one of them, who are thinking about it similarly, thinking about the space. What we did is we came up with something called the Customer Education Manifesto. Yeah, it's Manifesto. But we patterned it off of the Agile Manifesto. And if you know anything about that, that was written 20 years ago by a group of developers who were just sick of waterfall, old school methodologies that took years to release a product or a piece of material. And things went way too slow. And then the problem is in our world that, and let's talk about Agile a little bit. The getting content to market is super important, right? If you know what you're needing to do, you need to get that as quickly as possible. So you need to remove a lot of distractions. So what we did is created, and you go to customer.education, and then Manifesto is a link at the top if you want to see this. Actually, we're asking people to sign up for this and commit to this. And, it's a lightweight. You're not selling anything and you don't owe us anything, but you can go onto our site and read the manifesto, and if you agree with that, follow along. This, I think, and actually one of our listeners had printed it out and put it next to her desk in a nice frame, and I took a picture of that and put it on LinkedIn. It was so fun. But here's what we believe in. So I'm just going to read this real quickly because this frames up stuff, and then we'll get back to the methodology that I tend to use. We believe that learning a new product is like taking a journey into parts unknown. Fundamentally, customers are not going to succeed if they don't learn. Okay, that's customer education in a nutshell. We're united in making our customers wildly successful. We're enabling them to find value earlier and realize value over time. Right. So what that means is we get content that may be a little rough right away, and we continue to polish that and enhance and release over time. So we're anticipating and removing roadblocks, things that get stuck on. So I'll be informative. Support tickets inform us. Other problems that CSMs and professional services people and other people in the field report to us, we're taking into consideration. We're moving them into our program, and we're building educational programs at scale. So we have 6 principles, and those 6 principles are: number 1, think about value first. Guide customers to value versus educating them on every feature. This is the kitchen sink, right? Forget it. Focus on what's critical first. 2, build a core program that scales versus customizing every time. I can't tell you enough how many people fall back into the camp of, okay, let me say this. It feels good to train. It feels good. It's a heartwarming experience when, Matt, if I could teach you something today and you go, I didn't know that, and the light bulb goes on and you go out and you accomplish something great. That's a teacher's soul right there. That's what's freaking amazing about educating, right?
Yeah.
You connect with somebody, you unblock them, and by God, they learned and they went off and did great things, maybe better than you. And that's fun.
Hey,
Then we
Dave,
lead
real
with
quick,
data.
I'm going to bring up my screen. I want to make sure we can still hear
Oh,
you,
you got
though.
it. That's perfect. Cool. I like that. Makes it easier. Okay. Then we lead with data tied to outcomes, right? And again, one of our listeners had said that we're thinking about the outcomes first, not secondly, and that's a big weakness when we build fast. We forget about that. We start thinking kitchen sink, feature, 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 feature. Oh, look how great this is. That's not what matters. It's, did I unblock you and allow you to use this product? I don't care about anything else. The customer will figure it out. There's a documentation for that. Then agile practices. Now, agile is kind of challenging for people because agile forces you to not slow down, but think about what's most important and how do I get content quickly. And the thing that's often lost in that is, if I talk to my manager and say, I'm going to do this module on X. Let's use outreach where I work. I'm going to do a module on sequences. Why am I doing that? Well, because 80% of our customers use sequences every day and they need to understand it. Cool. Okay. What are the core things about that? How do I get that quickly? Now, if I were to get that module quickly, or normally if I were like traditional instructional design methodology is very waterfall. You're thinking, and I'll use the terms that you may know if you're an instructional designer, ADDIE versus SAM. ADDIE is a practice that sometimes takes pretty long, but SAM, the successive approximation method or model is agile. It's quick. It's loops. So what I like to do is be able to say, okay, well, I need to make all this product. I'll list out all the kinds of training modules I might need, but then I'll take them one at a time and I'll do them as quickly as possible. Loop, 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 come back, loop, 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 come back, loop, 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 get rid of something, add something in. So you're always thinking tighter loops, right? Because those tight loops, yeah, quality is not there, but the next loop, it's a little better. Next loop, it's even better. And the third, fourth loop, it's wicked cool, right? So you're giving yourself that time. And you're kind of doing the same thing, but you're spreading it out over the life cycle of the product. Because remember, in software, often the product is changing literally under your feet. From day to day, it might change, and it's infuriating, but it's also exciting, and we have to take care of that. Then the last 2 is design experiences that you want to learn from. You know what? Think about your customer first. I was just doing I did concussion training because I'm a soccer coach for my 8-year-old. And oh my gosh, when you think about some of the things, this was made by the CDC. Actually, I have to give them credit because it was engaging enough that it didn't fall asleep, but it could be better. It could be easier to move through because there's parts of it that moved really slow, right? But that probably took forever to make. And the experience that I had was that, oh, can I move this video forward? No, I get this. I've done this 2 times before. I just need to get to the test because I know this material. Those kinds of things infuriate customers. You want their experience to be good. That's why I see a lot of new roles as learning experience designers. I love that title. I think that's really evocative of what we're trying to accomplish here. And then the last one I think is super important. Moment of need. You got to think about in the context of what the people using your product or using their services or whatever it is, what is it they actually need? If they don't need to know the kitchen sink and all the functionality, get rid of it, cut it out, be brutal about it, get it down to the core brass tacks, the things you really need to know. So with this really informs my process. And Matt, I'm just checking time. I want to go through like the thinking that I have when I start to finish, but where are we at on time?
We've got about 7 minutes left before we'll jump over to what's new at TechSmith. And just real quick, I want to thank everybody for some comments in there. As if you haven't seen, some people are asking about how do you use product and stuff like that. I do want to mention that's not our goal today. We're not trying to teach the products. We do have some great, fantastic webinars. Go check those out. Go check out our tutorials. Our goal today is we want to bring Dave's knowledge about customer education and any of our guests to Visual Lounge. We're so grateful that you're willing to share with us. So we appreciate that. So Dave, we got a few minutes left. So tell us, what are these points that you wanted to help us bring it home strong? What do we got here?
Cool. Okay. I think what will be helpful and might help this audience in particular is like, what's my process to move super fast?
Yeah,
I've already said some.
Love it.
So let's think about this in 3 phases, right? Phase 1 is I landed a company. I'm brand new here. I don't know anything, and I've got to stand up a university, like an academy, pretty quick, right? Phase 2 is what are you doing next? Phase 3 is maturity. I'm actually moving then into educational services. Maybe we have IPO'd as a company. Maybe we've been acquired. Now we're going to talent. So let me see if I can do a speed run, get through this. So phase 1, I landed at a company. I've established a beachhead. Maybe I'm hiring people, right? I'm hiring a couple of instructional designers and trainers, and I'm trying to get my bearings. But what I'll do at first is I'll really look at the market. Who am I educating? What's the audience? What do they like? At outreach, predominantly, I have people that live in LinkedIn, right? They live online. They're often largely skewed towards people that are just postgraduate. They've just exited university, and this may be their first or second job. So natively, I have to think about the types or modes of content. So they're looking at online. They're happy to pursue learning at their own pace. That calls out university to me. Your situation may be different. So here's a methodology that I love to use, and I'm really evangelizing for it. Okay, let's say I have an LMS, or even I just have a web page, and I can put links and videos in and organize them. What I do first is I think about, okay, product, put it on the shelf, and I will ask you, Matt, here's this new product. Let's get you, product manager, some other people in a room, all the subject matter experts, and I'll start tearing it apart. And I'll enumerate the core use cases. Use case 1, it does this. Use case 2, I do this. Use case 3, I do that. It's thinking about the customer first. And you're breaking the learning pathway up in that context. And then once you've got enough understanding of that, what I do is quick loops. So I break it down, I list it out, I start working top to bottom. And I will start that journey by, interviewing SMEs, getting enough information, validating that information pretty as well as I possibly can, but I time box it. So I intentionally might not get everything. It intentionally might not be perfect. And that's actually kind of painful, because what you'll have, as my experience was, okay, a product manager gave me a whole bunch of trouble because I didn't get this quite right and didn't get that quite right. I don't slow down. I continue to move through that, fixing as I go, fixing sometimes in line and getting that out, right? So this again harkens back to this perfectionism streak. You're going to get things wrong. It infuriates me as an educator to do that. I have to tell you that really helps to say, okay, I understand. Don't panic. Quick loop, update, update, update. So then basically you build the road, you connect the dots. And then if you have different personas or you have different products or whatever, proceed through them one by one. That first loop is super critical. Now you also need to think about the triangle of quality versus speed, versus costs. And it's the project management iron triangle to a certain extent tweaked for us. So quality, my quality is not going to be as high, but then speed and cost might be factors here. I was fortunate to be able to hire a couple of contractors to help me accelerate. So I was able to move the bar of quality and move the bar of speed just a little bit. So think about that. Be brutal with your prioritization first and get through the core content. Now, the other thing that I do commonly, remember I talked to you about recording the video. I will often just live stream or even just record a webinar, and I'll invite customers on that, because what that does is it also helps you to make sure that the customers are seeing this, are immediately providing input. I'll put surveys up in the back end. And again, I won't worry much about the quality. I won't worry about mistakes. I take that, I record it, I put it into my academy or put it online. Loop, 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 loop. So I have as much maximized feedback as possible, and I'm putting myself out there. So all of you are probably like, oh God, I don't want to do that. But it moves you so fast. You're putting yourself on the line. It's risky. Sometimes managers look at that the first time and they go, oh, I don't know about this, because their brand is at line. That's what you said earlier. But trust me, it works really well. There are cases when you will not be able to move the needle on that. That's the core of it. And then basically successive work after that is more like, okay, I'll come back and I'll do a design doc, and I'll do what I call like a master, a style guide, right? And then I'll go and I'll say, I want to amp this up a little bit, and you'll do more stuff with Camtasia and have some fun and introduce some good elements, transitions. And then the third time through, man, you're polishing it and you're making it a high-end product. So that I think it's never failed. And if you do that, and yes, it's hard, it will get you speed, fast to market, and it actually builds you a good safety net so that you. And actually, the other thing is, you can show in your performance review how much you've improved all of your content. So,
I love
there
it.
you go. That's
I love it.
in a nutshell.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about is that, like, we know that no plan actually survives contact with the customers, right? Like, you might have all the ideas. Like, I know we've gone through and said, oh, we think this is going to be really important, and customers are kind of like, it's okay. I'm not really worried about that. I'm worried about this. And so it allows you I imagine that first loop allows you to really like hone that message, hone the things that you're saying. The other thing I want to say to that I was thinking about that I think is really important, and actually really relates well to this show, is you learn. Like, I love our guests, and I love our people that watch us live and listen to podcasts, but I know I'm learning way more than all y'all because I'm in it, right? I'm focused on it. I'm doing it every week, and I'm getting huge benefits, and I hope everyone else is getting benefits too. But I imagine that the iterative process, you're just learning so much about your product, about how it's being used, what is really important. And so I think that's all really, really great stuff. So Dave, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us and our audience. I think there's probably about 3 or 4 more episodes here that we could do. Maybe at some point we can get you and Adam to talk more about together. Time and place, I don't know when that would ever actually happen because you guys are so darn busy, as we all are. But I think this would be fantastic to have you back again sometime. We can talk about it. The other thing I want to mention while you're here, because speaking of learning, Dave, did you know, you probably didn't know this, we have a contest. For anyone that's watched any episode of the Visual Lounge, and we're calling it that Visual Lounge before we even named it that. So through last March, we actually started, that's when we started going live stream. So you're 1 week off from our year mark. And so we're having a contest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that super cool? We're inspired by things like the Customer Education Lab and, of course, lots of other great people. We want to give away, it's a 6 months copy of either Audiate, assets for Camtasia or assets for Snagit. You get to pick one, but we're going to give 3 of those away to anyone who tweets on LinkedIn posts or Instagram, I think Facebook, using the hashtag Visual Lounge. You can tell us what you learned, and everyone will have a chance to win. So
go do it now.
Dave, I know you've been talking about, you got your eye on Audiate. This is your chance too, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I gave it a good. It's a fun product.
Well, thank you. Well, I think you're going to stick around, but we're gonna move forward because here's the thing we always like to do at the end. We like to talk about what's new, what's some content that's come out recently to help. Speaking of customer education, help people be more successful with their product. So let's dive into what's new at TechSmith. All right, I'm going to bring this back so Dave can join us here. Dave, you get to just hang out with me for a few minutes. I'm going to share my screen again, everybody, because the first thing I want to talk about here is it was mentioned in the chat, but we've got some webinars. Let me see if I can scroll here, zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing there. If you go to our webinars page, techsmith.com/webinars, you can see we actually have a lot of product information. Speaking of customer education, this is a great way. If you're new to the product, you just want to dive in, we've got some getting started ones. We've got not only the product ones, we've also got some ones that are more kind of thought focused. So for instance, the value of visuals and 6 ways you can start using them. How long should my videos be? We had that question today. How long should my videos be? Well, in June, Andy Owen is going to take a look at some data. He's going to talk about those things. So that's just one thing I want to point out if you weren't aware of our monthly webinars that we're doing. The other thing I'll point out is our blog, and the blog has so much information here. There is just packed full. Go search it. There's great episodes that we've done in the past. If you missed the Visual Lounge before, you can see we've got those episodes. Those get turned into the audio, the video, the blog posts. We've got social media posts on them. But you've also got great things like 5 ways to make your course videos more interactive and accessible. It's a new one that you can go check out. We've got how to crush your software rollout, focused on internal rollouts. You've got if you're new to screen capture, screen video, we got all those kind of things, how to reduce noise in your audio recording. So much great information that we want you all to be aware of to help you be successful at making videos and creating images. And even if you're not using Camtasia or Snagit, we hope to help you, because we feel like that is our value we can bring to you to help you show what you know. So, Dave, thanks again for joining me today. I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions or thoughts that we need to catch up on. Doesn't look like it, so I think we're good. Any last words,
Awesome.
Dave, that you would want to share? Final takes.
Final takes. Again, I'll bump our podcast. It is customer.education. It's the customer education laboratory. We have a lot of folks on. We're talking now in this year about customer success. We're very much focused on bringing the message of how we as customer education professionals and we as content creators can impact the whole process. Retaining customers, making them happier, growing a company through education. It's on all of us to really take this to the streets and take this to our leadership, because I hear all the time how maybe education budgets can get cut. Things happen. We're really important, but we're not always seen. So take it to the streets, folks. Check out our website, sign our manifesto. If you need to contact with me, I'm at Dave Derington on Twitter. I don't check it as much, but I am extremely active on LinkedIn. So if you want to talk more about customer education in particular, I'm happy to talk with you. Just shout out at me and we'll chat. So thanks again.
And I'll just plug the Customer Education Lab and website. There's just, you guys are putting out great content there. It's anyone that's listening, and there's so many great. I think it's interesting, and this is kind of bonus stuff now. We can just chat for a second. The thing that I love is customer education has evolved. It's evolving. It's like we get to watch this part of an industry that was always probably lumped in with L&D specifically, and it still kind of is. We get to watch it evolve into something that's new and exciting. I mean, just the number of positions and opportunities. I know you and I are part of a Slack group that's for customer education. Like every day, there is multiple job opportunities to work in specifically customer education versus internal L&D or sales enablement or whatever it might be, which to me, it's just like, it's astounding, because I'm like, holy cow, there are a lot of opportunities if you're willing and able to do the work.
Yep. And if you're interested in that, we can definitely get you hooked up into that Slack channel. But I think the thing to note is in software, COVID-19 has proved, if it has proved anything, it's proven that on-demand virtual learning is hot. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. We've turned to multimodal. We've turned to video content. I prefer video content to start with because it's easy to create, it's really impactful, and it's fun. It's just fun to learn, and it's fun to do, and it's fun to retain. So if you want to learn more about that, let me know. I also work at Outreach. And I have to say, if you want to see an example of work that great people have put together, come in and check out our university. It's just look for Outreach Academy or Outreach University, and you'll find it on the internet. It kind of demonstrates, if you've looked at it over time, how you can go from some material that's not so hot to a university that actually really performing and scaling, because we're seeing adoption of our university actually outstrip anything I would have expected. And people are finding it. That means customers are like, oh, this works for me, and I keep coming back. So good examples there. I can share others examples with you. Happy to talk with you. Really love being on the show. So thanks again, Matt.
Yeah, and maybe sometime we'll have the debate academy versus university versus what do we call our thing?
Whatever you want to call it.
Whatever.
The fact that you have something that customers can get on demand, it's included in your subscription or paid for, is where you open the gate to your customers. You open the door and say, here's everything. And surprisingly, internally, the effect and the impact on that process of understanding your educational topology, understanding how your product really is, that's a transformative process. It really opens everybody's eyes, particularly if you apply the process of engaging with everybody and like getting everybody heard. And you're converting tribal knowledge often to canonical knowledge. You're taking think about Star Wars and all the like fanfic that's written, and when something applies to when it comes to canon, it's on Wikipedia and it's legit. So it's the same kind of thing. In a fun
Well,
kind
Dave, this has been awesome. Thank you once again for joining us. And again, everybody that's hung out with us today, it's been great to talk with you guys. Go check out the podcast. Go check out CE Lab. Listen to Dave and Adam and all their great interviews, which I know I'm a fan. So we, again, are appreciative for your time and your awesome explanations. So next time, everybody, we will see you next week with Jessie O'Donnell, who's in the chat. So this is going to be fantastic. She's going to be on face to face.
Yeah.
It's always exciting to have Tech Smithies on. Anyways, we'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.